Market research or UX research? Parmita has done it all. Having worked with great organizations like Cantor and Nika, Parmita shares her wisdom from her experiences in market and UX research. You're listening to India's first user and UX research podcast, Core User to UX, and I am your host, Sweekriti.
Hi, Parmita. Welcome to the show. Really great to have you here. Your journey is very interesting to me because you have worked for two of the organizations I admire a lot. One is Kantar and then now Nika. So both of them are really great at understanding users because many organizations use research done by Kantar, and then Nika in itself is epitome of how they understand their users and then packaging themselves, presenting themselves in a way. I mean, I keep seeing the updates in the Nika app and I'm blown away each time I open it. So, oh boy, that is some really great work there. So, that's why I wanted to invite you and, you know, talk to you how do you think as a UX
Yeah.
researcher and how things progress. So, thank you so much for joining.
Pleasure.
So, first, I would like to talk about your journey. You were, per se, a market researcher first,
Yes.
and UX research is pretty new. Uh,
Yes.
to be honest, as a child, I knew about market research, but nothing about UX or UX research.
I'm even surprised as a child you knew about market research because most of us researchers we have an internal joke amongst ourselves that before we got into the field we didn't know like such thing existed. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not as famous as engineering, but still there was an idea that yes, there's something as market research where we are understanding the market, the users, the consumers. So I would like you to talk a little bit about your role as a market researcher and now transitioning into UX research. How different are both of these fields?
Okay. So, yes, I was a qualitative market researcher before I moved on to UX research. And why I specified qualitative is because in market research, we have two broad divisions, it's quantitative and qualitative. So, I have been throughout a qualitative researcher. To talk about my transition from qualitative research to UX research, I will just say that, I had finished 5 years of my work experience, and 5 years is a milestone, right? 5, 10, 15, those are like a milestone. So that also gave me a chance and a moment to, sit back and think about what I have done so far and what do I want to do in future.
Hmm.
And as you rightly said, I was working at Kantar, which was the best and the biggest market research agency globally. So there was nothing beyond that. Okay. And in my 5 years as a qualitative research, I think I had pretty much, you know, done it all. However, growth is consistent, and as you go along, and what I mean to say is, I had seen all facets of qualitative research. And when I was contemplating all of this, I think in last 2 3 years, tech has boomed. Okay, like even when I watch certain talk shows, even they talk about how the role played by, say, whether it's social media or technology, even in last 2 3 years it has again intensified. Like internet was a part of our lives like all along, but it intensified after 2018 and then pandemic and all of it. So I thought to myself that I want to be closer to tech. I want to be closer to the technology because you also must be reading a lot of articles that my generation, the current workforce, they will be changing multiple gears by the time they retire. This is not that generation of, our parents where when they retired, they were in the same organization for like, say, 25 years and then they just retired. I'm not talking of even organization. I'm also talking about roles and profiles that you worked. You just cannot keep doing the same thing. And this is something which I personally believe in, that you have in life, in career, you have to keep switching gears. I referring to like driving, you have to keep switching gears to be relevant. Because if you doing the same thing, one is you are stagnating yourself, and tomorrow, that field may not be relevant anymore, and your skills may not be relevant anymore, just because of the fact that you were stagnant. So, which is when I was also reading a lot about UX research. It was an upcoming field, and like the very fact that it had research, I started reading more about it. That okay, like what field of research is it? And thankfully, uh, like it was good for me that it was very much aligned to what I was already doing. It was not something completely opposite. So it was not that okay, I woke up one day and I wanted to do something which was totally not aligned. Because when people yeah, so when you choose something which is totally unrelated, the switch becomes very difficult, because you have to start from scratch, and you have like basically that is also something which I didn't want to do. After being a working professional for 5 years, I didn't want to start from scratch. So it was also a field where my skills and my experience was relevant. So I was just, building upon that and moving forward. And yeah, which is when I started doing more research as to how qualitative research builds into UX research. And if I want to get into this field, how will it help me go on from here? And yeah, that is how Nika happened. Like, yeah, so that's pretty much.
So, if we talk about the differences between market research and UX research, what do you think are the major or even the nuances that, make both the fields different?
Um, See, the learning remains. I will say you have to shift the lens. Okay, you have to shift the lens while you are approaching research. So the fundamentals, I mean, it's not that okay. It's completely different. However, I will just tell you like two, three major differences. So when we talk about consumer research, the stakeholders in consumer research is marketing. Okay, so all the decisions are marketing, like it's driven by how to like the marketing decisions. Okay, so it may be a brand image, it may be brand building, it may be brand positioning, it may also be a new product launch, it may be to understand like what are the consumer needs, understanding consumer pain points, all of those. But at the end of the day, these are all marketing decisions, right? So that is one thing. And second is, in consumer research, you understand consumer as a whole. So if I speak to you, I want to understand you in and out as a person. Okay, like what are your dreams, what are your desires, what are your drivers, and what do you want in life, what are some of your regrets. So I want to understand you as a person thoroughly, because that somewhere builds into like how you are as a consumer, right? Whereas in UX research, I will say the focus is extremely sharp, narrow, and tactical. So here, again, UX research is tied to the uh, product and tech. Okay, so you may not be interested in the consumer as a whole, but you are only interested in how he interacts with your product. So during that time, when he or she is interacting with your product, what is that behavior like? You are only interested in that.
Yeah.
Of course, I mean, some parts of your personality or persona do dive into like what you did because of uh like why you did what you did. But yeah, the focus is very, very sharp and narrow. Yeah.
So, did you ever not feel a need in UX research to know your consumer thoroughly? Because I have felt that need quite a lot of times. What happens is put my user in with respect to my product or the very specific environment, I get limited responses. It may
Yeah.
not be enough to, project in the future or get ideas for the future, and it becomes very limited. So, what has been your experience in that aspect?
Yeah, so my experience has been very interesting, and I will tell you that, uh, because I'm a qualitative researcher, so even in that limited interaction that I have with my user, where, I may ask him few personal questions, but like not too many. My resident knowledge and my experience over the years also help me understand where they are coming from. Okay. Like why they said certain thing, or why, this behavior means this. So it's something which I go back and tie it down.
Hmm.
Yeah. Some of it, obviously, the user also spills out, like during whatever interactions happen, or, but yeah, this is what has been my experience, and this is what I do, because whatever research it is, not everything is said, right? And as a researcher also, like, somewhere my skill is to even catch the non-verbal cues, or something which is too layered. Not everyone will say things very, very plainly, right? So reading between the lines and those sort of things help me kind of draw my own conclusions.
Hmm. So I know a lot of that came to you with a lot of experience that,
Yeah.
getting those non-verbal cues, observation. But if someone has to hone those skills, or from where does one start? Like, do you have any recommendations or anything?
I mean, see, this is something which is not tangible, right? So
Hmm.
there is no such a rule book. It's a skill which can't be put into words, or I can't even tell you that if someone listens to this X thing, or if someone reads that Y book or that literature. It's just like for so many things, right? Like how people say it comes with practice. And in the beginning, we wouldn't believe them, thinking, "Arey, aise kaise aa jayega practice se?" But we've seen that happen, right? Like whatever it is.
Hmm.
So many things, even in our day-to-day life, we just become better with practice.
I guess for some things we just have to wait.
And also, I definitely say it will come with practice, but you also have to own some of it. So, like, if you just don't have it in you, then it may not come. But as I said, this is not at all tangible. Like, I cannot put it in words. Like, this is a very, I will say, an interpersonal skill,
Hmm.
Yeah. So you can just point it out that, okay, this person has it, this doesn't. But yeah,
Gotcha. Okay. But there is certain things like that get stimulated or grow better in certain kind of environment. So even if I know that I may not have that skill right now of accurately gauging the emotions, the observations, the behavior of my user. But then what kind of environment, or what kind of environment should I
yeah.
keep myself into to maybe move in that direction at least?
So I think what helps is obviously always being in an environment where you are also surrounded by equally curious people, and you're where you are constantly questioning. So it's only through, in a work environment when you are surrounded by mentors who keep questioning, okay, why this, why that, or a certain set of your colleagues or your seniors. So only then, you will begin to think in a certain way. You will begin to approach in a certain way, or maybe you will even see and learn. So that's the thing. But as I said, like, while I'm thinking at the back of my mind, a lot of it is like how actors define acting, like
Mm.
start out, they're so terrible. But
Mm.
if they have it in them, and again, I'm saying if they have it in them, then maybe, with each movie, they become better. But if they completely like, and also, as I was saying before, you can't put this skill in word. At least I can't. Maybe if someone can, then I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah. I like how you describe it because I think that's the beauty of research. It's it's that it requires me to be introspective and see if I have it in me and then improve and just reveal that to the world and then apply it in my job. So
So I will also tell you like why a lot of researchers, why they are from humanities background, because individuals who are from humanities background, they are naturally, more inclined towards literature, or they come from psychology background, or they are naturally good observers. Yeah. And they are more between that left brain and right brain. They are more of that, where this is something which they are good at. Like if there's someone who is extremely logical, mechanical, and all of that, then maybe they are more suitable as, I would say, and I mentioned it before, right? In research, we have a quant and a qual. So a quantitative researcher is more number driven, more logical,
Mm.
but a qualitative research is more of, why and what and all of that. So
Yeah, I guess that quality of being an artist and finding art in human beings and
correct. Yeah,
like,
a lot of that. Like reading, you have to read so much. As a researcher, you have to read. So these are some of the skills which some people have, some don't. Like I have seen some people who maybe got into research, they didn't have any of this soft skills, like reading was not their thing, and eventually beyond a certain point it didn't keep them going.
mm, yeah, that makes a lot of. Okay, now I'll switch gears now. And in our last intro call, you said something very interesting that in consumerism, it's a woman's world out there. And that is very interesting because now you are into UX research, you're into tech, which seems or is perceived very male dominated. And see, even if we want the world to be gender neutral and gender fluid, there are still a lot of nuances and things that exist in the world, that it is what it is. So, not maybe going in the gender term, probably I'm talking about more of the major gender conditioning that exists in the world and which is very bifurcated. Now it has come this gender fluid thing and people not abiding by certain rules. But if we see in the major sense of things, it is very still man and woman. So you have studied consumerism so closely. What are the nuances and, you know, behavioral differences when it comes to a man and a woman? And how do you compare it in both of your experiences, like when you were working with maybe FMCG products in market research and now you are in tech? What are the things that you've observed and you would like to share?
So as I was saying, in consumer research, yes, like a lot of the work is centered around women, but that also comes from the fact that I even explained to you last time that women are the decision makers of the household, and also like so many categories that they interact with makes them like the center of recipients of a lot of research that happen. Whereas I think in the tech world, the differences have been leveled out because everyone has a device, everyone is using it. So there's no gender parity in terms of being a user, I would say, because whether it's social media or whether it's whatever e-commerce, I think men and women are out there doing it, and there's no parity there.
Hmm.
So that is there. Like this is the difference which I would highlight.
Okay, but what do you feel that, is it that certain tech products affect men and women differently? Let's take the example of social media. I, as a woman, and it may be a biased experience because I am a woman, that I feel that the pressure on women on social media is enhanced because, A, as consumers of even the physical, tangible products, as you said, it's a woman's world out there. So we are the decision makers. We have more products at our disposal. So that also means there is more marketing pressure on women. And then there's
Yeah.
some social media that comes in. And I know there are different nuances in B2B and B2C products, but let's take the example of B2C products. So what happens then when I have, is
See,
it,
the I will just say enhanced pressure is because of enhanced consumption. That's just simply put, the pressure comes from consumption. Since you gave the example of social media, like a very simple observation, I don't see men interacting so actively. Like they may be consuming, but like all of that putting content out there from men is lesser than women, right? So the very fact that you put yourself out there more, and then hence that whole spiraling of you are competing more and you have to maintain an image that you are projecting on social media. I would say that.
I mean, I guess then there is still a parity in some way, right?
See, the parity is mental. There's no societal parity. The parity is in how a mental model works. I mean, and obviously, I don't want to gender stereotype, because 60% of, say, men may behave certain way, 40% may still behave differently, or it may be whatever. Like, since I've not done any concrete research on it, whatever I'm saying right now are just my like observations from what I observe. But yeah, there's no parity which like society is putting, which is what I want to tell you, that I think technology has leveled it out. At least in the virtual world, there is no, I won't say like there is any difference, like the way maybe you are seeing it. Yeah, and obviously, depending on the, category, the consumer, like maybe different. Like to simply say Nika is like Nykaa beauty is dominated and targeting women, right? Like beauty products, obviously, I'm not saying men don't use it, but there is a majority of user base which will be women. So it just depends, right? From category. Like if you're talking of gaming, I'm automatically assuming that it will be more inclined towards men. So
Mm.
it just depends on the category interaction.
Okay. So, in your experience as a market researcher, were there any places or spaces where things were gender neutral, or was it always gender?
Again, as I'm saying, the way in which women function, the way in which men function is different, and which is why the differences emerge. So I cannot say that something is gender neutral. I mean, this question is too broad. Um, so I don't know how to answer it, but what I'm trying to say is that the differences are inherent, and hence they will crop up wherever they will. Yeah, like to give you the simplest example, if we look at shopping, the way in which men interact with shopping is very different from how women interact with shopping. And now, this, I'm not saying a blanket statement that it is true for everyone. As a researcher, I'm saying this again and again because it's like a disclaimer, because I don't want to just say any sweeping statements,
Mm.
which is like I'm reiterating. So yeah, that's how it is. I just gave you an example, like because the brain functioning is different, the approach is different, the need is different. So which is why there are differences which crop up.
Okay, got. I mean, there is not a straight answer to it, I guess. And when I tech has smudged the line so much. If I'm talking about social media, it is different.
Yeah, because see, I'll tell you, you just cannot look at only men, women. Like, this is India, right? When I have done any research, firstly, I never look at India. You also divide, like, there is a metro, there is tier one, there is tier two, there is tier three. Each tier behaves differently, right? A tier three user may still behave like a metro user. You never know. Then there is men, women. Then there is age group differences. A Gen Z behaves so differently from your millennials and then boomers. So each age group, so there are so many cuts, right? So the question you asked me, there is no straight answer, because a Gen Z male from tier two, I can maybe, if I do a research, I can give you an answer. But I cannot give a male versus female answer, right? Like there can be very generalized statement, but yeah, there's no sure short answer, because there are a lot of differences in research which come up, whether it's age wise, whether it's gender wise, whether it's your location wise, because geographically also, we are so vast and we are so different. Tier 2 are the cities which were small few years back and now are have become like quite big. Something like an Indore. Yeah, Indore, Jaipur, these cities have become big now. And then there are tier 3 cities also. So yeah, I mean, how do we generalize? Like even if we look at metros, not all four metros behave same, because again geographically, like they are stark. The one is in north, the south ones behave differently. Also, in this time and age, there's so much migration. Like this generation has seen people who've come from smaller cities, then they have got their education, then they've started working, and now they are living because of their jobs in metro. So that it's also different, right? Like these are first generation migrants to metro.
So you bring up a very good point of, India has always been a very heterogeneous country. And
Absolutely.
now with tech, there are parts of Westerners in our metro cities. You see
Yes.
something Bangalore, you see something like Bombay. Bombay has a quality of New York, Bangalore has a quality of Silicon Valley. Delhi is a mix of everything. It stands out. It's weird. Kolkata feels like a metro. That was a very major city a few decades back, and now it's still stuck there. It's so different. Like I get the point that gender is a very broad lens to see through things. So
Absolutely.
so what I would want to know is what are the qualities, or maybe the compass that has helped you deal with so much heterogeneity or heterogeneous behavior? Because yeah, so
So I will just tell you, I keep going back to references from films. One is I'm film obsessed, but the second thing is also because I will just say that the reference is what Amir Khan told Ranbir Kapoor, that India is not Bandra, India is not Pali Hill. If you don't get out of it, you won't become a good actor. Also, a lot of these movie stars who are struggling today is because they've not stepped out of their, plush A plus, SEC A plus neighborhoods. They don't know. And which is why their experiences, their interactions are so limited. It's only within their vicinity and their kind of neighborhood. I will just say what has helped me is like my journey has been very varied. I have lived across cities. I have traveled. I have uh, I have interacted with people from all sorts of strata. I have seen different kinds of life. It always adds on to your experience. It makes you a human being with lot of richer experiences. And those experiences also build your lens, your outlook. I think as a researcher, I don't know why I didn't bring it up earlier. There's a saying for love that if you judge someone, you can't love them. I say the same thing for research, that if I judge you, I won't be able to understand you. And if I want to understand you, I have to keep aside my biases. Yeah, so I just think that being very open to experiences, to people, you know, if you are just in metros, you will feel, oh, India has progressed so much and like we have reached another century and all. But if you just, visit some tier two, tier three city, you will realize things have not changed so much on the ground, right? So if you are living in a metro city, that is not India, like this is something which has been said time and again. The real India is in the heartland. You need to be in touch with the ground to know like what's the reality. आप अपनी एसी कैबिन में बैठ के ये नहीं सोच सकते कि मेरा यूजर ये सोच रहा है. No, how do you know? Have you gone? Have you interacted? Do you know what is their life like? Yeah, and try to understand them.
yes,
So
absolutely. That these are some great points that you brought up. And I like how our conversation was not just about research, but what all influences research and where do we draw our research from. Even traveling has helped me become a researcher. I feel nothing else, no books or, yes, I read everything, but the amount of affection or I have for traveling and how it has affected my research capabilities, it's just mind blowing. So thank you for bringing that up. Uh,
yeah,
so thank you so much for your time, Parmita. Uh, these were
thank
all,
you for doing this. It was wonderful. It was a very new and exciting thing that I was doing. So, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Your experiences were of a different kind, very different from what I have done before. In fact, in the middle, I felt a little lost as well. I was like, this is different. It was not familiar. So that is a good thing for me, even though I was uncomfortable. So that is a very good thing for me as a host and a researcher. So thank you so much for that.
Thank
And
you.